Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents 1999, the year low culture conquered America and kickstarted our bizarre times, by Ross Benish, narrated by Josh Innerst. Introduction. Party like it's 1999. The countdown started. In a few seconds, the 20th century's final year would arrive. In a studio above crowded Times Square, MTV broadcast a performance of Prince's 1999. Except, it being 1999, MTV didn't feature the brilliant and innovative artist. Instead, Limp Bizkit played the track because nu metal was the sign of the times. Limp Bizkit followed Carson Daly's introduction with tuned-down guitars, record scratches, death growls, and call-and-response routines that elicited tepid reaction. The sky was purple, there were people running everywhere. Trying to run from my destruction, you know I didn't even care. Say 2000 party over, oops, out of time. Limp Bizkit, appearing on the youth station as the clocks turned over, demonstrated low culture's domination. Using a strategy that propelled Jerry Springer, Jenna Jameson, and Vince McMahon to 1990s stardom, Limp Bizkit gained attention by embracing its derided reputation. The band paid DJs to play their songs on the radio. They opened Ozfest sets, emerging from a 13-foot-tall porcelain toilet. Their 1999 album, Significant Other, begins, "You wanted the worst, you got the worst. The one, the only, Limp Bizkit." The band was scapegoated for Woodstock 1999's horrific failure. Even many of their fans felt their surging popularity was manufactured by Viacom executives. While acclaimed artists complained MTV devalued integrity, Limp Bizkit embraced it. Lead singer Fred Durst dated an MTV talent scout. In their album liner notes, Limp Bizkit placed a picture of the MTV exec overseeing the program Total Request Live, aka TRL. If it weren't for MTV, there would eventually be no Limp Bizkit because we would all be broke and poor and have to quit because the music business doesn't work like you think it works, guitarist Wes Borland told disgruntled fans. During a 1999 MTV summer special held on a Bahamas island, Durst asked the crowd, "Y'all want to blow this boat up?" He imitated the Roadrunner cartoon and pressed a dynamite plunger. Flames engulfed the boat. The crowd roared. In an analogous way, trash engulfed pop culture and people couldn't get enough. As the decadent 1990s approached the millennium, wrote low-culture apologist Nathan Rabin, pop culture devolved into a glittery Sodom and Gomorrah, forever tempting the fury of an Old Testament God with its extravagant stupidity. Several overlapping factors made trash flourish when Limp Bizkit dominated MTV. A growing youth contingent with plenty of disposable income met an increasingly unregulated entertainment industry. Media consolidation and debt-leveraged mergers drove down production costs while making cheap hits more lucrative for growing conglomerates. Meanwhile, digital technologies shook up media distribution and extended low culture's reach. These trends collided at the end of the 20th century and contributed to a glut of low culture that still shapes modern America. Among that glut, I elected to write about talk shows and reality TV, animal toy franchises, pro wrestling, horrorcore rap, porn, and video games. These subjects stand out for their late 1990s popularity, the contempt they spawned, and their lasting significance. Consider them the highlights of the lowlights. Late 90s critics ranked Jerry Springer the worst show in TV history. People were too entertained to care for this sanctimony. Springer beat Oprah's ratings. His show was the first program TiVo recorded. His Too Hot for TV outtakes became the fastest-selling TV title in the history of home video. More than a dozen talk shows copied him. Their success contributed to an increased distribution of cheaply produced reality programs that dominate airwaves. The dramatic segments Jerry Springer made famous resurface whenever you watch the news or scroll through social feeds. Senators threatened to fight Teamsters during congressional hearings. People you personally know share their most revealing secrets for free on TikTok and YouTube because they want strangers to comment on their lives. We're all talk show guests and reality stars, seeking attention through confession, equating entertainment with voyeurism. With a reality star president, we don't just watch reality TV, we live it. Jerry Springer and Beanie Babies peaked around the same time. Beanie Babies' speculative valuation skyrocketed, prompting mail theft, robbery, murder, and divorcing couples to require courts to divide their collections. Guidebooks and CD-ROMs cataloging beanie prices became bestsellers. The pretense of retiring the product line on New Year's sent toy resale markets into chaos resembling an impending recession. When a semi-trailer spilled Beanie Babies across an interstate bisecting Atlanta, Georgia, commuters hopped out of their cars and risked their lives to grab plush dolls. Beanies were part of an animal-driven children's entertainment fad, including Tamagotchi, Gigapets, Nanopets, Neopets, Furbies, Digimon, and Pokémon. In 1999, Pokémon's first movie became a hit. Its show achieved stellar ratings, its trading cards prompted class-action lawsuits, and its video games blanketed bestsellers lists. Beanie Babies represented a magical way of viewing consumer products. This fantasy is still with us. People pay exorbitant fees for digital collectibles, even though these markets are full of scams and poor resale. Mania over AI, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, Web3, and NFTs is reminiscent of the dot-com bubble that coincided with the collapse of the beanie market. What drives all of these fads is a philosophy of insatiable consumption. Pokémon's "gotta catch 'em all" is the consumer mantra of our times. When wrestling federations launched beanie lines, it became apparent sports entertainment was everywhere. In 1999, wrestling viewership peaked, with WWE and WCW collectively airing 15 hours of weekly programming that drew 35 million American viewers. A match held during the Super Bowl halftime show drew 10 million viewers. When pro athletes and talk show hosts appeared in hyped-up pay-per-views, it was a sign wrestling crossed over. Wrestlers appeared in Surge, Sprite, 1-800-COLLECT, 1-800-CALL-ATT, Chef Boyardee, MasterCard, Walmart, Little Caesars, Monster Truck Madness, Quaker granola bars, and the Kansas State Lottery commercials. They starred in Mad About You, Baywatch, Arliss, Boy Meets World, That 70s Show, The Drew Carey Show, Suddenly Susan, Nash Bridges, and Celebrity Deathmatch episodes. A&E, ESPN, and MTV produced wrestling specials. Wrestlers graced Entertainment Weekly, TV Guide, and Playboy covers. Jesse Ventura was sworn in as Minnesota's governor. WWE became publicly traded, minting its CEO a billionaire. As wrestling embedded itself into mainstream entertainment, the concept of pretending that something is real when it is not bled into American society. Wrestlers call this convention kayfabe. Powerful organizations practice kayfabe whenever they sell stories that require a suspension of disbelief. Oil companies that pollute the ocean and lobby against renewable energy claim to be environmentally conscious. Corporate apologists claim that private enterprise created the Internet, even though it was built by government researchers and academics. Advertising lobbyists who fight data regulation pretend to be working to benefit consumers. In today's culture, kayfabe metastasized into alternative facts and emotional truths. WWE founder Vince McMahon makes a strong claim for grandfathering our post-truth era. During the late 1990s, the insane Clown Posse, ICP, achieved their dreams by wrestling for WWE and WCW. In 1999, the duo emerged from the underground to find themselves with America's fourth best-selling album. No longer singing for a few hundred kids in packed auditoriums, ICP performed at Woodstock '99. They regularly went on Howard Stern's radio show. Feuds with Sharon Osbourne, a Disney label, and Eminem directed attention their way. High school dropouts whose early albums sold 10,000 copies, ICP suddenly found themselves with 2 records exceeding 1 million sales. Along the way, they developed a loyal fan base that would sustain their career after their meteoric rise cooled. When music magazines rated ICP as the worst band of all time, and the FBI designated its fans as a gang, the Clowns didn't crumble. They thrived on notoriety. The insane Clown Posse perfected a gimmick that has since become influential in religious and political discourse. Today's religious leaders imitate ICP when they sell a story of us versus the world while generating intense loyalty from those who buy into their outsider projections. The outsider label ICP personified is resurrected when religious figures lean on persecution accusations to rally people to their own causes. The believers who remain unite over their shared belief in receiving resentment. The surging popularity of ICP reflected that profane entertainers were winning the decency wars. In 1999, 2/3 of primetime TV programming contained sexual content. Sex and the City, Baywatch, and Beverly Hills 90210 drew viewers with steamy stories. President Bill Clinton's impeachment trial for lying about his sex scandal headlined news broadcasts. At the box office, nudity appeared in Eyes Wide Shut, American Pie, American Beauty, and Cruel Intentions. Sundance, Slam Dance, and South by Southwest featured documentaries about porn stars and pimps. To close the millennium, numerous porn stars publicized attempts at breaking records for having sex with the highest number of partners in a day. One of those attempts was turned into the best-selling porn of the year. Girls Gone Wild ran a financially successful operation off exploitative premises. Oral arguments began for a Supreme Court case that Playboy Entertainment Group won. Porn viewing shot up on the emerging internet. Porn continues to guide the expansion of free speech, pump money into ancillary organizations, provide politicians fodder to rouse their base, and dictate which technologies people use. With each tech advance, porn's boundaries become blurrier. The biggest porn producers aren't magazine publishers anymore. They're young people meeting on Tinder, sharing Snapchat nudes, posting Instagram thirst traps, and sexting AI chatbots. Porn's evolving legal issues encapsulate the tension change creates. Aside from porn, the internet disrupted and expanded the audience for many media, including video games. When Sega's Dreamcast hit shelves on 9/9/99, that is, September 9th, 1999, it became the first game console with a built-in modem facilitating online play. Online sales would empower video games to become the highest revenue-generating entertainment format. There were other signs that gaming was becoming mainstream. Sony's PlayStation was on its way to becoming the first console to sell more than 100 million units. Grand Theft Auto's first sequel and expansion packs came out, which helped convert GTA from a curiosity to juggernaut. Music in Tony Hawk Pro Skater provided a boost to ska and punk bands while showing that games could be used to market external products. The U.S. military began developing America's Army as a way to use games as a recruiting tool. Today's audiences may find it unfair to categorize video games as low culture, but that's how games were largely perceived in 1999 when they were culturally and politically condemned. The change of that perception is due to the transformation video games underwent in the late 1990s. Before video games became accepted, they were blamed for mass shootings. Since the invention of the written word, there have always been crusaders blaming social ills on new entertainment forms. What video games went through in the 90s contributed to a strong point along that continuum. Today, politicians ban TikTok. Technologists warn that AI will cause human extinction. Social media receives blame for violent crimes that used to be aimed at video games. As soon as one panic folds, new ones begin. These case studies definitively demonstrate that trashy 1990s entertainment oozed into contemporary society. This story is encompassing and far-reaching. It could be told without mentioning Donald Trump, but nobody else co-opted these trends to such a significant degree. In Fantasyland, How America Went Haywire, Kurt Anderson wrote that if Donald Trump hadn't run for president, I might not have mentioned him at all, but here he is, a stupendous Exhibit A. To describe him is practically to summarize this book. A similar statement could be made about the book you are currently listening to. In the following chapters, I will touch upon how Trumpism coalesced around the Donald's roles as a reality TV icon, practitioner of economic hubris, pro-wrestling Hall of Famer, Playboy cover star, believer in persecution complexes, and politician who blamed America's mass shooting problem on video games. Need further proof that late 90s tawdriness guides contemporary America? When low culture began its takeover in 1999, Trump announced his first presidential run. We've been living La Vida Loca ever since. Born 8 months before the decade began, I'm a 1990s kid. My family watched Jerry Springer together. Beanie Babies were scattered in my bedroom. My buddies played Pokémon Red and Blue on their Game Boys wherever we went. I flipped back and forth between WWE Raw and WCW Nitro during the Monday Night Wars. I blared The Great Malenko on my Walkman. I was not above perusing online porn during my rare encounters with internet access. I smashed buttons chaotically, hoping to execute Mortal Kombat fatalities on my brothers. I'm familiar with the subjects in this book because I'm a fan, or at least an unabashed user. My perspective is also informed by a decade covering the entertainment industry as a journalist and market research analyst. I've written about pop culture for dozens of publications, including Entertainment Weekly, Rolling Stone, Mental Floss, The Wall Street Journal, Esquire, and Decider, where I had a column about terrible movies. My research on media companies is frequently cited by CNN, The Hollywood Reporter, Reuters, The New York Times, and The Los Angeles Times, and I appear on radio and TV programs for NPR and Bloomberg. My approach is to highlight what made these derided entertainers so appealing to 90s kids like me. I will also provide dispassionate analysis of the business and political conditions that made the popularity of these pop culture products possible. I'll connect how these 90s trends continue to shape current events, influence public figures, and condition people's behavior. Several writers covered low culture and 1990s pop culture in recent years. Chuck Klosterman's The 90s, a book, explored the disconnect between how people remember the 1990s and how the era actually played out, using pop culture references to redefine the decade's perception. In Tacky, Love Letters to the Worst Culture We Have to Offer, Rax King embraced a wide variety of gaudy brands and celebrities, from Creed to the Cheesecake Factory, to humanized joy derived from low culture. Through various books, Nathan Rabin celebrated the joy of trash. Collectively, these books examined low culture through personal anecdotes or examined the 1990s broadly. My analysis differs because it is about the late 90s, focused on low culture and structured around economic analysis and social commentary. While my thesis is that 1999 was the year low culture took over the world, I'm not arguing that its pop culture was uniformly trash. Brian Rafferty makes a convincing case that 1999 was cinema's best year in Best Movie Year Ever. How 1999 Blew Up the Big Screen. Star Wars returned with Episode 1, which did tremendous financially but polarized reviewers. Memorable horror, The Sixth Sense, The Blair Witch Project, Sleepy Hollow. Animation, The Iron Giant, Toy Story 2, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. Indies, Boys Don't Cry, Election. Dramas, The Green Mile, American Beauty, The Virgin Suicides, Magnolia. Comedies, Office Space, The Best Man, Analyze This, and mind-bending, Fight Club, Being John Malkovich, Existence, The Matrix films came out in 1999. Others argued that TV peaked during the late 1990s. Warren Littlefield's Top of the Rock, Inside the Rise and Fall of Must-See TV provided an inside account of NBC's record-smashing heyday when Seinfeld, Friends, and ER aired around the same time. In 1999, Prestige TV began with the debut of The Sopranos and The West Wing. SpongeBob SquarePants premiered and became Viacom's most distributed product ever and one of the world's most beloved children's franchises. Jon Stewart took over The Daily Show and elevated political satire. In music, Rob Harvilla suggests in 60 Songs That Explain the 90s that the 1990s was the greatest decade with memorable hits coming from every genre. In 1999, Lauryn Hill took home a room full of awards. Foo Fighters, Santana, and TLC created radio hits with staying power. Cuban musical ensemble Buena Vista Social Club became the subject of one of the all-time great music documentaries. There was additional acclaimed pop culture in 1999. Chris Rock was in the middle of one of comedy's greatest runs as he created his own talk show, produced a stand-up special, made a hit record, hosted award shows, sold out arenas, and appeared in movies. Literature had standouts too. Interpreter of Maladies, a collection of short stories about Indian immigrants, became a runaway success. The Perks of Being a Wallflower challenged censors. Harry Potter mania gained steam with the Chamber of Secrets' U.S. release. Clearly, many interesting and transformative events occurred in 1999 that extend beyond this book's scope. My point is that despite this revered entertainment, low culture was plenty in demand, and these lowbrow products teach us most about the world. But first, let's examine what contributed to their popularity at that particular time. The case studies I consider are about youth entertainment. Around the turn of the millennium, there were more teens than during the previous generation's baby boom, and they were spending more money than ever. Teens run today's economy, said a Warner Brothers marketing executive. There's an innate feeling for moms and dads to please the teen, to keep the teen happy, to keep the teen home, and I think you can pretty much take that to the bank. The best-selling album of 1999 was Backstreet Boys' Millennium, which broke the U.S. record for most albums sold in its first week. The year's most talked-about magazine cover featured Britney Spears laying on silk sheets in her underwear for Rolling Stone. On TV, there was Freaks and Geeks, Dawson's Creek, Party of Five, Boy Meets World, Felicity, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Charmed, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and Roswell. Media executives liked teensploitation because adolescent media products were low-risk investments produced cheaply and marketed extensively. Spice World parodied this development in a meta way. "I've got an idea," says an aspiring producer pitching a movie idea. "You're gonna love it. It's the Spice Girls. There's 5 of them, and they're singers." The producer gets cut off mid-stance. "I love it," the studio executive interjects. The movie gets greenlighted before anyone finishes describing it because it's obvious any project appealing to teens will succeed. Likewise, American Pie's writer originally titled his script Untitled Teenage Sex Comedy which can be made for under $10 million, which studio readers will likely hate, but I think you will love. Made for just over $10 million, it grossed more than $200 million. Multiplexes in 1999 were full of teen movies, including Can't Hardly Wait, She's All That, Dick, Cruel Intentions, Never Been Kissed, Varsity Blues, Rushmore, The Virgin Suicides, Drop Dead Gorgeous, Jawbreaker, Idle Hands, and 10 Things I Hate About You. Adolescents have as much right as anyone to films of their choice, a right that has been served, wrote Stanley Kaufman in The New Republic. But now there's a sense that teenage fingers are gripping the film world's windpipe. In this environment, the Teen Choice Awards, Teen People, and Cosmo Girl launched. The low culture discussed in this book shares commonalities with teensploitation. Namely, they're produced cheaply or perceived to be young people's entertainment. Let's examine production costs. Dozens of talk shows, including Jerry Springer and Ricky Lake, sprung up because syndication companies realized that bare-bones talk could be profitably sold to markets around the world. When deregulations allowed broadcast networks to syndicate their own programs, the networks created reality shows like Survivor and Big Brother. Reality shows replaced famous actors with ordinary people, reduced the need for writers and designers, and favored freelance camera operators over seasoned editors and directors. Reality TV surged because production costs were recouped during initial showings, and syndication revenues were nearly all profit. Beanie Babies began as $5 stuffed animals before morphing into financial speculation instruments. Pokémon set off a frenzy through issuing paper trading cards. Despite high ratings, few wrestlers earned paychecks comparable to pro athletes or TV stars due to unfavorable non-union contracts. Insane Clown Posse built a religious following by glorifying a low-class lifestyle that used discount soda like holy water. Porn became pervasive because producing, distributing, and accessing it became significantly cheaper when internet access expanded. Regarding low production costs, video games are an exception among the topics we've examined. It's common for games to have budgets exceeding blockbusters, but what video games have in common with this book's other topics is that during the 1990s, they were perceived as children's entertainment. Adolescent pop culture, from comic books to rock and roll to video games, is usually perceived, at least initially, as low culture, and the 90s were no different. The typical gamer is now in their mid-30s, in line with the U.S. population's median age, but that's not the image gaming holds in many minds. Politicians, academics, and activist lawyers who tried to censor games uniformly portrayed video games as products for children. Even a Nintendo executive accused Sega of lying during a congressional hearing when Sega suggested gamers were getting older. Like video games, the subjects I cover were recognized or feared as being directed at youth. When Jerry Springer's interviews with political figures drew poor ratings, Springer changed the show's format, telling his producer, "Let's go young." The retooled circus caught on by attracting high school and college viewers. "Young people are just much wilder in their personal lives," Springer said, "much more open, much more emotional, so the show started to go crazy." Reality TV leaned on youthful audiences when MTV pushed The Real World, Road Rules, and Jackass. Beanie Babies were designed as children's toys before adults used them to develop cottage industries and crash e-commerce markets. Time called Pokémon a pestilential Ponzi scheme that engaged children through a multimedia and interactive barrage like no other before it. When wrestling viewership peaked in the late 90s, the average fan was 23 years old, about half the age of today's wrestling viewers. Insane Clown Posse gained national recognition when they were expelled from their Disney label the day their album dropped. When the FBI designated ICP fans as a gang, the National Gang Intelligence Center reported that Juggalos consist of Caucasian males ages 16 to 26. Congress's first attempt at regulating online speech was driven by the desire to shield children from viewing porn. Why were media conglomerates placing so much emphasis on cheaply made pop culture for young people? The late 1990s business environment, advertising targets, and technological distribution channels offer clues. Regarding the business environment, mergers and acquisitions were conducted at unprecedented levels in 1999. Telecom firm Vodafone's takeover of Mannesmann remains the largest acquisition ever. Pfizer's purchase of Warner Lambert became the largest pharma acquisition ever. Viacom and CBS created the largest media merger at the time. Clear Channel purchased AM/FM Incorporated in the largest radio acquisition ever. This happened just after Walt Disney and Capital Cities/ABC combined forces and Time Warner merged with Turner Broadcasting. These mergers were
Sample complete. Ready to continue?